think if you define benign as exercising soft power, right? In
Right.
other words, having a velvet glove that goes over the mailed fist, which we were very good at for a long period of time, and which obviously President Trump is not good at. I would imagine that at some point in the not too distant future, the United States will understand that having taken the velvet glove off and exercising nothing but mailed fist over other countries is counterproductive, and that you want to at least appear somewhat as a benign hegemon or a benign great power. So I don't think that the situation you see today is forever. But I think, Steve, you never want to lose sight of the fact that the United States is a ruthless great power. And that the soft power that we've exercised in the past was largely designed to cover up our basic ruthlessness. Great powers just act that way, and they go to great lengths to disguise their behavior. And the United States is very good at that. But to understand, and Western policymakers and Western strategists have a difficult time understanding this, that there's limits to what you can do with your military power. We tend to think that having a big stick and threatening people with that big stick or using that big stick allows us to always get our way. Just think about Afghanistan. We lost in Afghanistan. When I was young, we lost in Vietnam, despite the fact that the United States was far more powerful than Vietnam, and the United States is far more powerful than the Taliban in Afghanistan. But the fact is that we lost. There are just limits to what you can do. And there are limits to what the United States can do in the Middle East, even though it is incredibly powerful. And there are limits to what we can do in Ukraine against Russia. And therefore, it is not that we're impotent, because we're not impotent. Again, we are the most powerful state on the planet. But nevertheless, there are limits to what we can do with that power under any circumstances, but certainly in a world where you have two rivals, the Chinese on one hand and the Russians on the other. In the West Bank since October 7th, it surely is not as horrible as what's happening in Gaza. But you see all sorts of evidence of ethnic cleansing. You see all sorts of evidence that the Israelis want to drive the Palestinians out of the West Bank. That's really the key issue here. I don't think whether you have de jure or de facto annexation matters that much. You have annexation. And what you're going to get in the future, if the Israelis have their way, is you're going to get ethnic cleansing. It's just that the Israelis have been concentrating mainly on Gaza up to now, where they're executing a genocide, which is designed to facilitate ethnic cleansing. So people are not paying much attention to what's going on in the West Bank. But for those of us who watch what's going on in the West Bank, it's absolutely horrible what's happening there. And it will only get worse with the passage of time, because the political center of gravity in Israel is only going to shift further to the right over time. And there's going to be more and more pressure to expel the Palestinians from the West Bank as well as Gaza.